In the final phase of the Second World War, as the European fronts grew more intense than ever, the demand for armored vehicles capable of breaching fortified defensive lines became increasingly urgent. Confronted with strongholds such as Germany's Siegfried Line, Allied forces were compelled to develop specialized armored vehicles that prioritized heavy firepower and exceptional protection, often at the expense of mobility, to gain local battlefield superiority. It was in this context that the United Kingdom introduced the A39 Tortoise, a heavy assault tank, often classified as an assault gun. True to its name, the Tortoise was distinguished by its enormous size, slow movement, and extremely thick armor, featuring a fixed casemate instead of a rotating turret. The A39 was built with a singular focus on breaking through enemy fortifications and withstanding intense enemy fire. The Tortoise represented a clear example of the late war trend toward extreme design, where firepower and protection took precedence, while mobility and logistical practicality became secondary. Despite its formidable strength, the A39 Tortoise also highlighted the practical limits of the super heavy tank concept in modern warfare. The development of the A39 Tortoise heavy assault tank stemmed from the urgent need of the Allied forces in the final stages of the Second World War. In 1943, as preparations for the Western European landings were underway, the United Kingdom recognized the necessity of a tank capable of reaching heavily fortified lines such as Germany's Siegfried Line. Priority was given to thick armor and powerful firepower, with mobility considered a secondary concern. In April 1943, the British Minister of War and the Minister of Supply issued a joint memorandum proposing the development of a specialized assault tank for the 79th Armored Division, a unit known for its use of unconventional armored vehicles. The Nuffield organization was assigned the project and submitted 18 preliminary designs, designated AT1 through AT18, each incorporating progressive improvements in size, armor, and weaponry. The culmination of this development was the AT16 design. Finalized in early 1944, it featured a 32-pounder gun, thick armor, and a weight of up to 72 tons. The AT16 was approved by the British Tank Board and served as the basis for the A39 Tortoise heavy assault tank. The decision to place a direct order for 25 units at the prototype stage reflected strong confidence in the design's combat effectiveness, as well as the urgency imposed by wartime conditions. However, with the end of the Second World War in 1945, the demand for such specialized vehicles declined significantly. The initial order was scaled back and only 6 units were completed, most of them after the war had ended. Although the A39 Tortoise never saw combat, it stands as a testament to Britain's efforts to develop a super heavy tank capable of breaching fortified defenses, marking a significant chapter in the history of British armored warfare. The A39 Tortoise was a heavy anti-tank self-propelled gun developed by the United Kingdom during the final stages of the Second World War. Designed specifically for breaching fortified positions, the vehicle prioritized protection and firepower over mobility. Although only 6 prototypes were built, the A39 remains one of the heaviest armored vehicles ever developed by Britain. The vehicle measured approximately 10 meters in total length, including the gun barrel, with the hull itself measuring around 7.24 meters. It had a width of 3.9 meters and stood nearly 3 meters tall. Its combat weight ranged between 78 and over 81 long tons, depending on the source. The crew consisted of 7 members: a commander, a driver, a co-driver who also operated a machine gun, a main gunner, 2 loaders, and an additional machine gunner. The fighting compartment was considered spacious, suitable for extended operations under combat conditions. Both the hull and the casemate were protected by exceptionally thick cast armor. The front of the casemate featured armor between 215 and 228 millimeters thick, while the gun mantled area could reach up to 225 millimeters. Side armor measured 152 millimeters, with the rear ranging from 110 to 178 millimeters. The roof was between 25 and over 50 millimeters thick, while the floor was at least 35 millimeters. The lower front hull was also heavily reinforced, with sloped armor reaching 170 millimeters in the lowest sections and about 55 millimeters on the upper slope plate. While the A39's armor was considered superior for its time, certain areas, such as the commander's cupola and the front-mounted machine gun housing, were identified as potential weak points if hit precisely. The main armament of the Tortoise was the Ordnance QF 32-pounder gun with a caliber of 94 millimeters. This weapon was developed from the 3.7-inch anti-aircraft gun, adapted for anti-tank and fire support roles. The vehicle carried 60 rounds, mainly armor-piercing capped, APC, and high-explosive HE shells. APDS or HESH ammunition was not used on this model. The APCBC shells had a muzzle velocity of approximately 880 meters per second, capable of penetrating the frontal armor of tanks like the Panther at distances close to 1 kilometer. The firing rate ranged from 8.6 to 11.1 rounds per minute, aided by 2 loaders. The gun's elevation ranged from a depression of 10 degrees to a maximum elevation of 18 to 20 degrees, with about 20 degrees traverse to each side. Secondary armament consisted of 3 Best machine guns of 7.92mm caliber. One was mounted on the left front of the hull near the main gun, while the other 2 were placed on a small turret on the right side of the roof. Total machine gun ammunition amounted to approximately 7,200 to 7,500 rounds, intended for close-range defense. The vehicle was powered by a Rolls-Royce Meteor V12 liquid-cooled petrol engine, producing around 600 horsepower. This was the grand variant of the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, famously used in fighter aircraft such as the Spitfire. The power-to-weight ratio ranged from 7.7 to 8 horsepower per ton, enabling moderate mobility despite the vehicle's heavy weight. The drivetrain featured a Merritt Brown gearbox with 6 forward and 6 reverse gears. The engine was located at the rear, with a transmission at the front. The maximum speed reached 19 kilometers per hour on flat terrain and about 6 kilometers per hour on rough ground. Operational range varied between 40 and 140 kilometers, depending on conditions. Fuel capacity was approximately 530 liters. The suspension system used torsion bars with 4 bogies on each side, each bogie holding 2 pairs of wheels mounted horizontally. The tracks were 91.4 centimeters wide, reducing ground pressure and improving mobility over soft terrain. The vehicle was also equipped with smoke grenade launchers for concealment when necessary. Internally, the structure was divided into 3 compartments: the gearbox at the front, the fighting compartment in the middle, and the engine at the rear. The driver's position was on the right front, next to the main casemate. After the war ended, one A39 Tortoise was sent to the British occupation zone in Germany for field testing. This vehicle, possibly designated P5 and nicknamed Adventurer, was evaluated for both operational capability and firepower performance. During the tests, the mechanical systems operated reliably, and the 32-pounder gun demonstrated significant power by knocking out a Panther tank at a distance of nearly 1,000 yards. Engineers achieved their initial technical goals. The Tortoise was reliable and heavily armed. In the post-war context, with changing tactical demands, mobility, rapid deployment became top priorities. Although meeting technical requirements, the Tortoise no longer fit the new direction, emphasizing flexibility and multi-purpose use over specialized design. Consequently, the project was discontinued, closing the chapter on an impressive design during a transitional period in British armored doctrine. The A39 Tortoise was a British heavy assault tank project designed in the final stages of World War II to break through fortified defensive lines. With thick armor and a powerful 32-pounder gun, the Tortoise clearly prioritized firepower and protection, but sacrificed mobility and weighed over 78 tons. Although it never saw combat, post-war tests demonstrated stable operation and effective firepower. However, limitations in mobility and deployment made the design unsuitable for modern battlefield demands, which require greater flexibility and versatility. The Tortoise symbolizes a period of highly specialized tank design before the emergence of the main battle tank concept. Despite its lack of operational success, it remains an important technical legacy and a clear lesson on the necessity of practicality in weapon design.